We're at Ballacameen School today with a great guest, Mark Kermode, who you see on television giving the real truth about films. I'm actually a big fan because this guy actually does tell you if it's worth going to see, and that doesn't happen with all the critics, does it?
Hey, look, I think the only way you can do criticism is to be honest about it. The whole point about film criticism is it is in the end personal. There isn't a right or wrong answer about any film. I mean, I know that I've often been quoted as saying I'm right, you're wrong, but I mean it, as a joke, because the fact is, it does all come down to personal opinion. All you can do is you see a film and then you talk about it honestly. The worst thing any film critic can try and do is to second guess the audience, to think, well, I didn't like that, but I imagine other people will, therefore I have to tailor what I say about it. You can't. And also people instinctively know if you're not being honest about it. There's loads of films that I have absolutely not got, and they've taken hundreds of millions of dollars, and I can't pretend to understand why Transformers is a hit, and I'm not going to.
But that's the thing. I mean, do you get swept along with that hype that some films do have? I'm thinking about the James Bond film, for instance. I didn't particularly get it because I was expecting something so fantastic. It disappointed me. Is that...
Okay, you're talking about Skyfall?
Yeah.
Okay, we know what I said before about that thing about there's only an opinion, but in that case you are wrong because Skyfall is brilliant.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing with Skyfall. I mean, it's really easy to forget what the Bond franchise looked like before they reinvented it with films like Skyfall. I mean, I think Daniel Craig is the best Bond we've ever had. I mean, he's a proper actor for a start. And you'll remember that when he was cast, there was all this stuff about saying, oh, he can't be Bond. He's blonde. He's the wrong colour. He's the wrong shape. His hair's not... And it was like, no, he's a brilliant actor. You don't cast Bond because his hair's the right colour. I mean, what? So the thing that all those actors, whether it's George Lazenby or Roger Moore or Sean Connery, is we've cast them on their hair colour. In the case of Daniel Craig, he was a brilliant choice. The first movie, Casino Royale, was terrific. The second one, Quantum of Solace, was a disaster. I mean, by their own admission, the script wasn't finished. So actually what Sam Mendes had to do was to go in and go, okay, we have to rebuild this. And he did. I mean, it was a Bond movie that made sense. It had characters that you believed in. It had proper emotional arcs. And it had really exciting action. And it had a great theme tune.
Yeah, okay.
And, what's not to like?
You love your job, don't you?
I do, yeah. Because
great. Is it a real job now?
No, well, my suspicion is that, at some point somebody will just tap me on the shoulder and go, that's really not a job, is it?
Yeah.
But as long as I can keep getting away with it, I will keep getting away with it. Okay.
Now, I know it's your birthday, the big 50. You're on the Isle of Man for this.
A few days, I'm still on this side of 50.
But you're back in the Isle of Man. I mean, we've got this island culture in the background here. Yes. You're involved in this.
Yeah, well, they've invited me to take part in it, which I was really, really pleased in. I mean, my mum's from the island, and obviously came here all the time when we were kids. And then later on, I started coming here professionally because there's been so much, film stuff going on in the island recently. I mean, I was over here shooting a piece for the Culture Show about the opening of Me in Orson Welles, which was at the Gaiety, because they filmed it at the Gaiety because it's one of only a couple of places in the world that's actually got a Corsican trap.
Correct.
And so, Richard Linklater had been really sort of, eager to use that, which was absolutely great.
Just give us your review quickly in 20 seconds of that film. What did you think?
I loved it, but you see, I'm a huge Zac Efron fan. Oh. I think Zac Efron, and I'll explain this to you at great length if you want, but I think Zac Efron is a better actor than Marlon Brando, and I think that time will prove me right. But I think the thing about Me and Orson Welles is that it's one of those films that it's inspired by real events, but obviously it's a fantasy. But it's a film that's intelligent and it's funny and it's got some great performances. And I mean, I've seen it 3 or 4 times and I've liked it every time. And I think it's a really good piece of work. Are you not a fan? So what did you not like about it? You didn't think he was great as Orson Welles?
It was surreal watching it, to be honest, on that premiere night in the Gaiety.
In the Gaiety, I know. Though that is peculiar, yeah.
The Disappearance of Alice Creed, made in the Isle of Man. Now, I love that one.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely terrific. And again, what's really clever about that film is that it's a very, very small cast. You don't quite understand any of the characters' motivations at the beginning. As the film goes on, it reveals itself in a very sort of twisty way. It was interesting because we had various members of the cast on the radio talking about the intensity of the early scenes and how disturbing it was to film those early scenes, which are really, really sort of quite shocking and full on. And then as the film progresses, it becomes slightly more playful and becomes this kind of dark satire. I thought it was great. And it's one of those films that you want people to go and see, but you want to tell them as little as possible about it. You're talking before about reviewing films. one of the difficult things is not giving it away. The thing that critics always get, told off for is plot spoilers. Or you spoiled the plot. In the case of The Disappearance of Alice Creed, you almost want to go, okay, look, there's 3 people and some stuff. Go see it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
People are going to scratch their head because the film was very low, wasn't it? I mean, it didn't get much of a release, didn't get much buzz, really.
It got a lot of buzz. I mean, yeah, it was very well critically received. I mean, I remember seeing it in a screening with a bunch of hardened critics, all of whom were really, really impressed by it. Yeah, I mean, it may not have been a huge financial hit, but it was certainly very well received by critics, and I think the people who saw it were really taken by it.
Out on DVD and Blu-ray, no doubt, somewhere.
Yes, right.
Isle of Man and the film business, you've taken interest in this, how it's progressing and how it sort of made its way so far?
I think, everyone will know that the perception of filmmaking in the Isle of Man changed radically in the sort of the last 5, 6, 7 years. And it was, if 10, 15 years ago you'd talk to people about filmmaking in the Isle of Man, they kind of wouldn't really have had an idea of how thriving the film industry was. And then you got movies like Chico and Rita, which is an animated film, which I think people are still surprised to know was a Manx production. Disappearance of Alice Creed, which we've spoken about. TT Close to the Edge, which is a documentary. But the reason that film is important is that it's not about motorbikes. It's about the characters. And I think that if a documentary is going to work well, it has to take a subject, even if you're not interested in it, even just say you've never been interested in the TT, you've never been interested in motor racing, you could still watch that documentary and be absolutely enthralled by it. Because it's the story of, people in extremis. I mean, these really kind of overcranked characters, and it has everything. It has real terrible tragedy and strange life-affirming moments and excitement. And I thought it was a really great documentary because it's about the people. It's not about the sport.
I don't know if you followed that the Isle of Man government has bought into Pinewood Studios and all that. Any views on that?
No, I mean, let's see how it works out. I mean, it's a very, very interesting move. It's a very bold move. There has been quite a lot of coverage about it, but let's see how it works out.
And for your visit and the silent culture, you sort of figureheading, are you a bit? I mean, I know you're doing an evening with tonight, but you
what I'm doing tonight is I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes. I'm going to talk, the usual nonsense, and then I do 45 minutes of because I've done a few of these when I have books coming out, and the way it generally works is I just tell some stories, and then we get questions from the audience. And the questions from the audience is always the most interesting thing because you never know what anyone's going to ask, and people never ask the same thing twice. I mean, it is really strange that you think. I mean, I must have done sort of 30, 40, 50 of these shows, and you still cannot predict the questions that people are going to come up with. I was at one the other day, and somebody asked me this question. They said, "What's the best movie ever made that wouldn't work if you took the score away?"
Do you have an answer?
Well, no, not immediately. But what happened was we then must have had 15 minutes of conversation between me and this person trying to figure out what the answer was. Then finally I came up with something and they went, "No, that's the wrong answer. The correct answer is Napoleon." Oh, okay. There we go.
BBC News Channel on a Friday.
Yes.
You're on it and off it nowadays, not on it every week, are you?
I am. I'm sorry if it seems that way. It is my regular spot. Actually, I've just for the last 2 weeks, I happen to have been off because obviously that is always done live from London. What happened was because I do the Radio 5 show, which we also do live, but we happen to do 2 outside broadcasts when we were in different locations. So when I do that, then obviously somebody else stands in. But I am.
It's still your show.
It's still, yes.
I was worried.
That's the way I like to think of it, yes.
Good. And it's definitely worth a look. And
Thank
overall, I think I agree with you on most occasions here. So check out that.
Well, you don't have to agree. Just as long as you feel that, as long as you feel that there's something to engage with or to you find funny or to have a row with, and that's fine. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch Barry Norman on TV, and I would literally row with the television. And my parents would go, he can't hear you. I go, that's not the point.
Okay. Well, always a little flag waving for the Isle of Man going on there in the background.
No, absolutely. And as I said, I'm really thrilled to have been asked to do this. I mean, my mum's been coming here all my life, and I'm now about to tip over into senility at the age of 50. So how lovely to have been asked to be involved in this now.
We'll let you go.
What did you
sit
say?
Down.
Thursday, I think.
Thank you, Mark, very much indeed for talking.
Thanks.